My name is Lily, by the way. So this is my first YouTube channel. Those of you who've been following my blog for a while know that I was in a cult. So I'll lead with that, keep y'all hooked. But that's what I'm here to talk about today. I have a huge announcement, but before I get to the announcement, I'm just gonna do a brief overview of my story to familiarize those of you who aren't familiar. So in 2010, I was sent to a troubled teen institution in the Midwest. I will not name the facility for legal reasons, but while I was there, I was forced to remain silent for the bulk majority of 2 years. That means no verbal or nonverbal communication. I was put on isolation for probably about 6 months, 3 months of which, and this is just rough estimates, about 3 months of which I was forced to eat only meat and cheese on wheat bread with celery for every single meal. My parents were advised that it was in my best interest not to talk to me for several months at a time. I was denied therapy for long periods of time. We were forced to perform extraordinary amounts of labor in very extreme conditions. We were neglected medically. We were denied basic access to hygiene. We were sleep deprived. I could go on and on about the crazy things that we went through there. One in particular was, for several months, I was tied to a goat by a leash. At one point, I was even tied to another girl by a leash who was tied to a goat while I was also tied to a goat. And this was all in the name of therapy, in the name of, starting a new life, and there were like ceremonies and all sorts of very strange culty things and brainwashing strategies that I went through while I was there. And so I was there for over 2 years. I got out in 2012, a week after my 18th birthday, and it took a while for the brainwashing to wear off. At first, I actually wanted to go back. I didn't feel like I was equipped for the real world. They'd scared me so much of it that I actually wanted to go back to them to continue to be abused. So some years passed, and once the brainwashing wore off, I wrote a negative Yelp review of the facility that accurately reflected my experiences while I was there, and the facility turned around and sued me for my negative Yelp review, me and 2 other women. They seemed to target the girls who had the least family support or the least financial stability, and it targeted them in what seemed like an effort to send a message to the other girls not to speak about what happened, and that they would continue to try to control us outside of the facility. Again, some time went by. That lawsuit settled, and basically the settlement agreement, we agreed, I signed documents that were like, don't talk about the settle agreements, don't talk about the place that you were sent to, don't talk about the names of the people who sent you there. If you do any of these things, we can sue you again. But the thing is that all of that is contingent on, they would have to prove that I'm lying. They would have to prove that I'm lying to sue me again. And now it's been some time, and organically, a bunch of girls from the facility have talked about their experiences. We found out that there's no federal statute of limitations against child abuse in the state where we were sent. So we decided collectively, some of us did, to file police reports. Well, we filed police reports, and the county in which the police reports were filed seemed to be corrupt. There were a couple of girls who reported that as they were giving their testimonies of child abuse to these officers, that the officers told the victims that they were personal friends of the cult leaders, and they asked us who our leader was in this effort to press criminal charges. It's like Pretty Little Liars, but in men's Wranglers. It's terrible. So at that point, we decided, we can't trust them to see justice through on their own. They gathered sufficient evidence to where it was turned over to the DA, which is good at least. So it went to the DA, and we all wrote letters to the DA asking that he please pursue charges, explaining our stories and why that's important to us, because this facility is still operative. There are still girls there now, right now. Oh, speaking of which, my boyfriend, he attended the boys ranch in the same county. So we never met while we were there. That was like highly forbidden, but we met much later through a mutual friend on a cult subreddit thread for institutional abuse. And we've been together for 6 months now, and I love him so much. He's such a good guy, and sharing that experience with him is like, you can't get that with anyone else because he's been through it. So that's just a little more about me. But anyway, we decided after realizing that they might not pursue charges organically, that we would put some pressure under them and file a class action lawsuit. One of the reporters in the county that the charges were filed reached out to us asking, hey, if they don't press charges, if they don't file the charges, are you going to sue? And we were like, oh, our statute's up. And he's like, I don't know about that. Like, you should look into it at a federal level, because I think if you go class action federal, my cup keeps falling. Just so you know, every time it's like, that's why. So anyway, if we file class action federal, then our statute might not be up. So I reached out to a friend of mine who's a lawyer, and I said, hey, this is the situation. You've been with me for a long time, because he was friends with me before the cult. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, this situation, I've been pressing charges, and a lot of other people have come forward, this, that, and the other thing. So here's my question for you. What's the deal with federal statutes? And he was like, it could be a human rights issue. In fact, it almost certainly is a human rights issue. You could file this as a class action. I was like, okay, well, do you have any recommendations on legal aid or on somebody who might be willing to take this on pro bono? And he was like, well, I'm a lawyer specializing in class action. I don't know why I thought he did tax law. Sorry, Mark. He does not do tax law. So anyway, he's taken on our case, which is fantastic, and I will keep you guys posted as this moves forward. But the purpose of this video is not only to introduce myself and my story and my channel, but to make you guys aware that we now officially have a pro bono lawyer who is going to help us file a class action lawsuit that I hope will pave the way for serious changes to legislature for the troubled teen industry, specifically as it relates to institutional abuse. And I will keep you guys posted as things develop. You'll notice that I won't mention the name of the facility for legal reasons in my videos, but I do plan to keep you guys informed. In the bio here, I am also going to link you guys to the petition that you can sign that will help us show that we have support in our request to have changes made to federal legislature that will protect kids going forward from being abused in these type of institutions. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, or if any of you has been to a place like this before, again, the link in the bio, subscribe, and email me at thecultconfessionals@gmail.com.